Hello, listeners. You're tuned in to the Roundup.
In this episode, we spoke to Mustang News digital manager and reporter Leila Touati, who just returned from covering the testimony of Poly President Jeffrey Armstrong in Washington, D.C.
Welcome to the Roundup, Leila. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited.
We're so excited to have you, and it's honestly, you've had such a turnaround. When we're filming this, Leila just got back late last night / early this morning, so we really appreciate you being on. We know this has been a very crazy experience for you.
Oh, no, I'm so happy to be here. I know it was, a bit of an early morning for me. Got in at around 1:30 a.m. back to my apartment, but no, I was so excited to be here. I woke up not even tired, just great times.
Just ready to podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So, Leila, you just covered the hearing for President Armstrong. Can you paint a picture for us of that courtroom? What was the energy like? What were the feelings like?
That's a really great question. And I was just thinking about this because obviously it just happened, but I would like to say that the feeling was very electric, at least for me, first time in there, first time in DC, not as a tourist, but as a journalist. It was really exciting. And I would like to say that the feeling there was electric, but obviously the feeling on the other side for the presidents of the universities, there was so much tension, there was so much anticipation. And so it was very interesting. I got lost on the way, but we made it, and it was so much bigger than I thought it would be. It was just the turnout was so insane. And yeah.
And you were face to face basically with the three presidents, right?
Yes, I was.
Oh my gosh, what was that like?
So it was really interesting because as the press, we all had chairs that we were on the right side of the room if we're looking at where the committee members were sitting in. And I went up to Sarah, who's working with the house, just kind of getting us all settled. And I was just, hey, I really want to I'm a photographer and I'm a reporter. Where should I go to take these photos? That's not the back of the president's head. And so she kind of led me down into we were just calling it the pit, where all the other photographers were. So I was with AP with Politico, just in there snapping photos and just getting as much as I could. It was so surreal, and I was right there, and so I was just sitting down in front of them, and sometimes they'd look down at me and I'd just be, hello. Hi there, smile.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's just crazy.
That is insane. The story that you wrote following coming back, there's just so many fun little details in there. Do you want to just kind of walk us through that sort of start of the hearing and what you sort of observed being on the opposite side of, everyone else who was just looking at the backs of their heads?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the room was buzzing. We were all waiting for them to come in, and it was very much the anticipation of, well, which door are they going to come in from? There were 4 different possibilities. Are they coming from a back room so they wouldn't be in the corridor with the people who didn't make it inside the hearing room? It was just so many questions were flying around. And so when they finally walked in, it was whoa, and here they are. And so as a photographer, we were kind of following them down. They walked on the right side of the ramp, from the committee chairs. And we were just taking them, taking shots, walking with them. And as they sat down, we had, I would say, about 3 to 5 minutes as they were settling in to kind of get up in their faces. And we knew that when the gavel was struck, we had to just get down, crouch down, and army crawl the rest of the hearing through when we were in the pit. And so it was very interesting and exciting to be there and just seeing, like I said in the beginning, it was so much tension. And I was just kind of taking notes of body language, the facial expressions as everything was happening and as everyone was making their opening statements. It was so, I don't think I've ever been more observant of a human being.
And you were talking to us earlier today about DePaul's president specifically coming down. Can you tell our listeners what that was like?
It was very, I guess it's exciting for the press, but when you try to put yourself in their shoes, it's very difficult, and it's very sad, and it is disheartening. So I was following Armstrong, but DePaul Robert L. Manuel was right behind him. And so I had Armstrong, and I have these photographs of where Emmanuel is clutching the ramp that he's coming down on, and it's just this kind of panic-stricken face. And so you kind of capture that, and then you see that aftermath. And yeah, just looking through those photos yesterday and the day before on Wednesday, it was just so, yeah, it was just very surreal, and it just really makes it very real being in that room too.
Totally. And kind of looking at the hearing now, I know a lot of us have kind of been talking about being surprised at how little Armstrong spoke compared to the other presidents. Do you want to touch on that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, we all know, like, as journalists, we all cover the fact that he created the anti-Semitism task force. He made these changes before and after he was called to testify. And so I think he was very much prepared in this sense. Like, he knew exactly what he wanted to say. I'm pretty sure he obviously would expect the questions they were going to throw at him, the heat that Haverford and DePaul was going to get. And so I think he was very prepared in that sense and was ready to make clear statements. And he was praised for it by the committee members too.
You were so close to President Armstrong. What was, I know you've mentioned an overall sense of tension, but what was kind of the sentiments you gathered from him? Was he nervous? Did he seem calm?
I would say he was very nervous. I know, and I wrote this in my article too. He was drinking a lot of water. I was like, wow. But obviously, like, hey, I do that too, and I'm stressed. And so it was like, oh, like I saw the beads of sweat on his hairline, and hey, I was sweating too. It was a packed courtroom. But yeah, it was, you could feel that tension rolling off of him, especially and he was the last to make his opening statement, and that was like one of the that was the most he spoke throughout the whole hearing, basically, those like 3 to 5 minutes. And so he made that and then just kind of leaned back in his chair and was just ready to kind of, yeah, like, and Amelia spoke on this earlier, like before this morning, before we started filming. She was just saying, oh, it was like, they were like, the presidents were a piece of red meat because like they knew what they were going into on this. But yeah, it was very interesting.
That is really interesting. And for further context, Leila's talking about how Cal Poly President Armstrong spoke for about 8 minutes total. So 3 to 5 minutes of his opening statement is quite a large chunk of that. Do you want to just talk a little bit about like what he specifically covered in this hearing in those very short 8 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the opening statement was just about, Cal Poly Learn by Doing institution and kind of the steps that they've taken. He said very specifically, and I noted this in the article, that the number of Jewish students since 2011 that were enrolled in Cal Poly has doubled. And so like that was a very interesting fact that he threw out there. It was just kind of a blatant, like, here you go, like, here's what we've done to kind of counteract these measures and these claims that the committee members are taking. He was trying to debunk them and saying, no, like, we're so great. We've had these small events in the past compared to DePaul and Haverford. And so that was very much his opening statement. And when he was asked about the disciplinary measures taken against Cal Poly students who took part in anti-Semitic incidents on campus, he was very clear and thorough. Like, he mentioned that, it was 6 students that were facing disciplinary actions or had been faced. And yeah, like that was a large chunk of what he was speaking on. And I think it was perhaps like halfway through the hearing, they were just asking him very general questions like, do you condone anti-Semitism on your campus? No. Do you believe that students who participate in anti-Semitic acts should be disciplined to the highest degree? Yes. So it was just very much like 8 minutes and 0.03 seconds that he spoke in that hearing. It was just, yeah, that was all he said, basically.
And what are your key takeaways from what Armstrong said in the hearing?
I mean, covering this as a college student as well and being a student of Cal Poly, of course, like, it was kind of like, woo, like, we're okay. You know, it's never good news if, like, the college that you're going to, and then your university president is called to resign or is like facing these measures because obviously like he is such a public figure. He's representative of everyone at Cal Poly. And so it was, I guess, like, I wouldn't say pride just because it was just like, I'm here to cover a story, I'm unbiased, but it was just very interesting and kind of like, oh, you kind of like wipe that off your brow and you're like, okay, like on to the next. Like, and he was just very clear. We spoke afterwards of how Cal Poly is moving forward, and he's very interested in like pursuing this and going forward with the task force, going forward with building this kind of structure around Jewish students to make them feel as safe as possible on the campus.
And so you mentioned that as a Cal Poly student journalist, you kind of felt that sigh of relief. I was curious, were there student journalists there from Haverford and DePaul as well?
There were. I met a few students that were covering Haverford. We were like very much packed, and it was like there wasn't a lot of time for us to talk amongst ourselves, but I was sitting next to the Haverford students that were writing a live blog very similar to ours on Wendy Raymond, Haverford's president. So that was really cool to kind of look over, and it was kind of that feeling of togetherness. Like we really supported one another. It was two of them, and one of them was a photographer, so we would like army crawl together through. Like I was bringing my computer over, and she did as well. And so it was kind of a nice sense of community, because I think it was a lot of ours first times, because we're still just students.
Yeah, totally. I'm curious, was there a different sentiment from the Haverford students because their president was getting grilled compared, to Armstrong? Was there a different sentiment from them?
Absolutely. Like I was seeing them, watching them typing away, like on everything she was saying. They were shaking their heads. They were kind of like small nods, like, oh, of course she would say this. Of course she would respond this way. And you're right, she was getting grilled, and she was getting grilled on the way she was even responding to the questions, of not being clear enough, not answering in the exact way that they wanted her to, and by they, the committee members. So it was just very jarring compared to how President Armstrong did.
And you've also been talking about having to like army crawl. I'm so curious. So we were all here at Cal Poly in the newsroom and the KCPR station. We like the live stream, we put it up on the TV, and every time Leila came on, we were like, oh my gosh, it's Leila. But so behind the scenes, you were having to like army crawl to get photos?
Basically, yeah. And so the way that it was all set up, and you can see this like, during the live hearing recording, but the presidents were on the panel, and then there was maybe, I would like to say, about 4 feet of space, of like floor space between there, and then when the first like committee member like panel started rolling up, and then it's just kind of like a staircase looking all the way up to Chair Wahlberg. And so that was where we were supposed to be, and there was kind of a space for the committee members to walk down, and they were split up between the Democrats and the Republicans. And so there we shouldn't have been able to be seen at all, because there were 2 cameras facing towards the panel. There were, I think, like 4, probably more, facing towards the committee members. And so you had to be down as much as possible. And I was like, wait, like I have to get my computer. I had my little, those like classic recording devices on. And so like grabbing that while protecting my camera, like going in between the presidents, it was so exciting. It was like, I think like the best experience I've ever had so far covering, like doing journalism.
That's so awesome, Leila. This was such a huge opportunity for you, and I'm so glad you got to go. And I'm excited to see, like, your coverage so far has already been amazing. I'm excited to see more from that on mustangnews.net.
You mentioned bringing like a little recording device. Clearly, like, you were very prepared. Maybe, like, walk us through, like, what's in your bag? Like,
oh, that's such a great question. I love that so much. Yeah, definitely. No, I was so nervous about being so unprepared. And the night before, I was in the hotel room in Baltimore, because that's just where I was stationed, checking the camera and just making sure the focus was on, the lighting was on. Like, it was just very hard because I'm a reporter first. I'm no photographer. I'll say it. And so just being so stressed about that, and then making sure I had enough recording minutes on that thing. But in my bag, I had, the camera was shoved in there, recording tape. I had all of the adapters so that everything that I needed, the SD card, the mini SD card in the recorder, everything else like would be really easily transmissible into my computer. My phone was there taking photos for social media, taking vertical video, horizontal video for the live blog that was sent. Also a few photos that were like really easy to be sent from my iPhone. Let me see. This is so, but like where the press chairs were, it was, Committee on Education and Workforce, and it just had a big like press, like little paper signs printed out. I put that in my bag. It's a little crumpled. That. I was like, I'm taking this home. This is a souvenir. Like, this is so exciting. I can't believe I'm here. Let me see. Awesome. No, yeah, just so like all of the things were in there. A little notebook, which I ended up not even taking out, but I was a bit scattered everywhere too. Like, pulling the camera out, having the laptop. Like, I was sitting on the side and then very much in the pit for, I would say, majority of the hearing, because my biggest goal was speaking to Armstrong immediately after. And I was told by professional journalists, like, well, sit on the side, get right up in front of him, get up in his face, especially at the end, because, like, it's harder to refuse someone when you're in person, especially. So.
Totally. Yeah. And were you successful in talking to him afterwards?
I was successful. I think, like, showing up in person really was a huge impact, and he really appreciated that I was there, and really embodying the learn by doing experience, he said. And I said, happy to be here. Like, so tell me about this now. But no, like it was really great. He gave me a few minutes of his time, and then off he went.
Yeah, and what did he tell you right after the trial?
Well, he said it was
not trial, the hearing.
The hearing, of course. He said that he was just happy to be here and represent Cal Poly and answer all the questions that they had for him, and just, very much a sentiment of moving forward and being the best university president that he can be. Very generic, was not willing to speak about the other presidents, because one question I had was, why do you think you spoke so little and all of the attention was on them? And he said that his focus was on Cal Poly and just, making improvements in-house.
You were really like a one-person show. Like, you mentioned earlier that Haverford had like college journalists, as in plural, but Leila was like the only person we had stationed, and like that takes a lot to be like a photographer, a reporter, like keeping an eye on all the tech, like just your brain is like everywhere.
And sending us updates.
I know.
All the meanwhile. And I know too that Cal Poly, Jeffrey Armstrong, there was some students from Cal Poly Hillel and Shabbat sitting right behind him, right?
Yes.
Were you able to talk to them at all, or what were like kind of the sentiments from them?
I was not, but I was noticing. It's so funny. I have a few photos of like them sitting in the back and they're smiling at the camera. I think they were very like happy to be here and represent as well. They had all matching Cal Poly pins on their lapel jackets. It was just really great. I unfortunately was not able to speak to them. I was prioritizing like speaking to Armstrong, and it was just very difficult as everyone was dispersing the courtroom, and like all of the journalists jumped up and were like each racing to get to their president. But like I'm really looking forward to seeing their statements. I have a few people in mind I would love to speak to, and like kind of get their sentiments on how everything went down. But I like to think that, and as Armstrong said, that community just keeps growing and growing, and the partnership between Cal Poly and those Jewish student organizations is just hopefully growing stronger and stronger, like through this.
Kind of comparing your prep work for this hearing to what actually happened, were you like surprised by how little Armstrong spoke? Were you kind of expecting him talking to take up more of your time?
Absolutely. And especially in the aftermath, writing that story, it was pivot after pivot after pivot, because we were calculating how much time he actually spoke, and I was fully prepared for him to be grilled like Haverford was. And even though, like comparing the two university presidents, DePaul and Haverford, versus Armstrong and Cal Poly's anti-Semitic incidents on campus, like we did not have a 17-day encampment. We did not have like Jewish student organization posters ripped down, and then have kind of that neglection of information from Haverford. Like that was a huge grilling point for them. And so I did expect it to be less on him, but I never expected it to be 8 minutes out of 195 minutes. Like that was just very jarring and very surprising, and I think we'll definitely be looking into it further.
Stay tuned. No, I know. I feel like here, all of us that were watching Leila report from afar and covering here just in the Cal Poly Journalism building, we had it like we were watching the live stream, and every time Jeffrey Armstrong like was actually speaking, everyone went silent. We were like, oh my gosh, he's actually talking, because it was just like so rare.
You know, like Emmy was up in the station, and like we were down in the newsroom, like typing literally every single word and then trying to like condense it all. But at the end of the day, like we're a newspaper that serves partially like the Cal Poly community, and so like our focus was on that, and like we were obviously prepared for the worst, and we were just honestly surprised, but just to cover like what he said to the best of our ability, you know.
No, and I want to shout you guys out too. Like Amelia, you were down in the newsroom. Emmy, you were like hosting all of the live updates and keeping track of everything, and like that must be so difficult on an audio level as well, and making sure you're getting like the quotes correct and be like, wait, what did he say? Go back. Like, did anyone catch that? Like, I think you guys did such an amazing job too. Like, it was so great, and it really brought the whole organization together working on such a huge event. It was very pivotal. I think it was like y'all did such an amazing job too.
That's so sweet. I think I said this. We had like a big group chat morning of for the coverage, and I said this there. I was like, seeing Leila on the TV was the highlight of my week. I was like, this is so cool. Like honestly, so cool. Yeah, Leila, do you have anything that we might not know about just watching the live stream?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. I would say, I mean, C-SPAN is so great, and like getting those videos in, getting those photos in is like, they're great. It was just very much seeing the shadow fall on their faces was so like being in there, being just like not even 2 feet away from them, and they're just fielding these questions, and they're so nervous, and they're looking down at their notes, and I'm wondering, well, what do the notes say? Show me your notes. It was so, yeah, I mean, I noticed this, like he was chugging water, like especially in the beginning. He was so nervous, and hey, I would be too. Like that's crazy, testifying in front of Congress, like representing the whole university. You have to as a president, but it was just very, like trying to paint that picture as much as I could without being like, okay, is this a stretch? Like, and trying to remember everything and remember the timing and everything through it. But it was so exciting. Like definitely like a really high point and what I've been doing so far. So that's been so great.
Yeah.
I'm losing my track.
You mentioned notes, and you told me earlier you saw the Haverford College president's notes. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I did see. It was so interesting. And so all of the presidents, when they were coming down, they had papers clutched in their hands. They were prepared. They had their materials. What were they planning to say? And obviously in a hearing that went on for about 3 hours, maybe a little more, I'm trying to recall, like they needed their writing lines. And I had a peek at the notes, and it was just very jarring. And I was only able to look at Haverford's, where it said, smile and nod, look down, like empathy over everything. And those were just like little things that I saw. I did not see the whole picture. Like I'm positive there were more. I'm positive like there were facts, and you know everyone is media trained through this. Like it's Congress. But that was very jarring, and that was very telling in how she was dodging so many questions, like wasn't able to provide clear numbers compared to DePaul and Cal Poly. And so it just really made me think, well, what's on their note sheet and how much were they trained for this? Because you have to be. But yeah.
Wow. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. That's so interesting. But Leila, is there anything our listeners should be looking for over the next couple days? Any coverage that they should be expecting? Can you give a little sneak peek?
Ooh. Well, I never want to reveal too much.
Oh, no.
Even though we're a newspaper. Yeah, I mean, always, like, we're always investigating. We're always digging deeper. Like, I think the whole story has yet to reveal itself on how, well, obviously we all know how things went down. Like, what is next? Like, what are the real plans? Is this just talk? Is it just for show? Like, we'll find out. And so, yeah, I guess that is all we have for right now, but
I'm excited to see.
TBD.
What did you do after the hearing? Just curious, because, like, Kirthi and Chloe, shout out to them. They've been doing a lot of pre-coverage on this. We all, like, went to the health lawn across the street, and we just, like, laid on the grass for, like, a solid 15 minutes, like, dead silent. Yeah, I'm just curious what you did after the hearing. Did it kind of, like, decompress, get your mind off of things? Probably write that story, honestly.
Yeah, low-key that was. Well, I did. I got a great tour of the Capitol by Sean McMinn, who is a Cal Poly graduate and now is the data and graphics editor at Politico. So I was able to connect with Politico reporters there too, another Cal Poly grad, Catherine Allen. So like having that support was so great and definitely made me feel less of a need to decompress. And so we walked around, we grabbed lunch and was just, yeah, like hashing it all over and then just, yeah, talking about other things to kind of, because it's heavy stuff and just, yeah, like as you guys should, like lay down on the health lawn. Like that was so important. And you guys worked like for so long too. Yeah, definitely got a bit of sunshine and then, yeah, wrote up the story, took the train back to Baltimore and then, yeah, just continued writing. Yeah.
I know. You were on the train, you called me, you were like, I chased Armstrong down and I caught him. We were like, yeah.
That's awesome and good for you. That's journalism.
No, yeah, I was so like, I had tunnel vision and I think he knew that. I think he knew the second I sat down like on the floor in front of him and I had everything all around me and people were crawling through and I was like moving my computer like, oh, sorry, I'm all set up here. Like he knew I was coming for him. So
yeah, you had to claim your spot, claim your stake.
No, but definitely hoping to decompress over this weekend maybe. And the weather is going to be so nice too.
True.
So.
Yeah. You deserve a break.
Oh, thank you. No breaks here.
Good. Well, Leila, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, I got this opportunity to go because I was going to be in Baltimore May 6th to the 8th for the Hackers Summit hosted by the Real News Network. And so that Thursday I also focused on that and learning about artificial intelligence and that intersection between like what is new media and how do we kind of reach our audiences in the best way while regaining and building more trust, because that is like a huge problem we're dealing with now. And so it was just very much a stroke of luck and getting the train tickets and getting everything there and prepared. And the camera, I need to return that camera actually. But like renting the camera out from the journalism tech office and having support from like the chair and all of like the people at Mustang News to go through this and report it was just so like, I feel so incredibly lucky to do this. And so, yeah, like whatever else happens, like I couldn't recommend it more to get over there. Like it was so scary, but it was just so exciting at the same time of, yeah, what could happen. And now it's over and I just can't wait to pursue this further.
So awesome. Amelia, do you have any more questions?
I think that's all I've got.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Roundup. I'm Amelia Wu, the editor-in-chief of Mustang Media Group.
And I'm Emmy Burrus, the KCPR news director. And thank you so much, Leila, for joining us today.
Thank you. I love you guys so much. This has been so fun.
We love you too.
Yes. Well, check out our other podcasts, Slow-Fi, CP101, The Gallup, Chatterbox, and Different Matters on our website, kcpr.org, or on your favorite streaming services for podcasts. Bye.